Hey guys, I have completed week 5 of Artist Way book, and I have not missed even a single day of writing for 35 days in a row now. And it's been an exciting journey for me. I think what I really liked most about this journey is the fact that I was actually thoroughly enjoying being creative person who was writing the morning pages without a break. It takes about 45 minutes, and what these morning pages have done for me is they have opened some windows into my own mind over this period of time. I look forward to writing those pages. One of the things that I noticed while writing these pages was that it needs to be the first thing in the morning for two reasons. One is then lots of breaks come in, lots of interruptions come in, and secondly, the mind is very fresh in the morning, so the flow of thoughts is very smooth. And I think that will probably apply for any kind of writing as well. So if I'm to do some creative writing, I can do that as well. But what I've also noticed is that if you have a creative burst sometime during the day, you can simply just take a piece of paper and start writing, and it doesn't matter what time of the day that is. So I think there is that flow of thoughts, the flow of creativity that comes. And I wrote one blog post purely from this creative flow, and that was not in the morning, that was during the day. And that was about the lessons that I've learned from running, and how those lessons can be applied to your corporate life, or those can also be your life lessons as well. That was a creative piece that I wrote, a small blog post. And what also happens is that I know I've got a bit of a bad throat. What also happens is that you can be distracted by stress, personal stress, work stress, and with that stress the creativity gets impacted. So I get distracted, I'm now not in the best place. But sometimes this whole creative process actually becomes a good escape from the stress of work. So it really depends on what how badly you are impacted. But if something is really bothering me, then I can't focus on anything. Or if there's a work deadline that is stressing me out, then I can't really put, even if I have time, I can't really clear up my mind from those thoughts and make way for the creative process. That's the other thing that I typically noticed. But I do find morning pages very soothing actually. And it's not that I have not done journaling before. I've been journaling on and off since I was 15. But what's different from that journaling experience to these morning pages is that because of the way Julia Cameron has explained the approach uh, during this 12-week challenge, is that that approach is focused on self-indulgence, that approach is focused on self-love, that approach is focused on going into those areas of your life that you have not visited before. So the questions that Julia asks you during the course of this book, those questions force you to go into those areas, specifically identify things that you enjoy, the people that you like to spend time with, and so on and so forth. And I think that whole self-indulgence, self-love, self-reflection process has made the morning pages what they are, which is a really positive burst of energy for me. And I definitely like writing those morning pages. The other question Julia has asked after week 5 is that, do you hear answers during your leisure time? When you're spending time with yourself, some of the questions that you're struggling with, do you hear answers to those questions? I haven't specifically paid attention to that as such, and it's not something that has happened only during leisure time, but I find that I am at peace with myself, and what that lets me do, at least 70-80% of the time, is for me to be receptive to my own thoughts. And that has definitely led me to understand what matters to me most, and what I should be focusing on. So I think there is a clear sense of direction. Of course, so one area that I feel I'm missing out on is acting on some of the suggestions. So I'm not I feel there is resistance to change in me. So while I know where I need to go, I'm not really changing. So I would say the actual change happened maybe about 10% of the time, but 90% of the time I know where I need to go. I know where I need to focus on, and I'm not focusing on that area. So I think that has been a limitation. But even to know where I need to go, and to know what matters to me, that also is an important revelation, I feel. The other question Julia also asked is, did you find any synchronicity during this week? I may have, but I haven't really paid any specific attention to it. So I don't know if there have been any instances of synchronicity in this week. And I think by synchronicity, what we mean is things that happened naturally, which I would have I would have probably expected to happen. But one of the synchronicity that I experienced was week before, and I already shared that. In fact, two examples of synchronicity that happened. One was this writer's workshop on unblocking yourself that I attended. That workshop was indeed based on the Artist Way book. And the other coincidence was the arrival of the Big Magic book in the house, and that book is also based on the Artist Way. So I think those are probably two examples of synchronicity that did not necessarily happen in last week as such, but in a week before last. The pressure on time is too much. I think that is the other challenge that I face with so much happening on work front, personal front, my physical fitness, all of those things take a toll, take time to manage, and I think that typically puts a lot of pressure on things that I want to do, I need to do. But that also goes to show that sometimes I am deprioritizing my own enjoyment, and I'm prioritizing something for some other people, whether it is on the personal front or on work front. And I think that also is a challenge to look out for. uh, Probably the third thing also is that the whole reading deprivation, or staying away from social media, too much of internet browsing, reading stuff. I'm a journalist by nature also, and I love to read. I'm always chasing knowledge, so keeping myself away from all that has been difficult. But I definitely have noticed the fact that when you empty the well, as Julia calls it, when you empty the mind of all this extra reading, browsing, social media, television, uh, it frees up space, and most importantly time as well, to do some creative writing. And I'm really looking forward to doing that writing now. I think I have a very good foundation now to be able to do that, so I will focus on that. The other good thing that has happened is the Big Magic book, and I'm not too sure if one should be reading Artist Way and Big Magic simultaneously or not. I just couldn't keep my hands off that book, the Big Magic book, and it has given a lot of clarity, and a lot of very different way of looking at your creative life, and that has taken a lot of pressure off. So I think between these two books, it has given me that canvas to work on, and that has helped me clear that canvas off, of all the burdens of expectations, of monetary expectations from your writing, expectations of status from your writing, also what people will think, all of that. And that is actually the advice is actually about your writing, but that advice actually helps you through other parts of your life as well. So that has been an important revelation for me. And when you take all that burden off, you go into that childlike state where you play and you do whatever you want to do. You jump around, and you have least bit of concern of what people around you will be thinking about what you're doing. So I think that's one. The other part of that childlike state is also you do something purely because you enjoy doing it, and once you've done it, you're not holding on to it. You don't have an ego attached to it to say, this is a sand castle I've created, now it has to last forever and I have to take it with me home. And just the sheer enjoyment of creating the sand castle is what you made you do it in the first place. And once you're done with it, you move on to some other activity. You don't care if the waves come and destroy it the next day. I think that is also been a liberating thought for me. So I think that has been a really great journey so far. That this has been week 5, and I'm not too sure if I'm kind of recording things that are very different from week 4 or week 3. But I am in a more solid state. I have actually yes, that's one more thing. I've actually found some of the writing that I've done in the morning pages as the writing that I've underlined and said this work can be further developed into a blog post on some kind of a writing that can be published externally as well. So I think that has been a plus point. And because all that writing happened in morning pages, which is a safe zone, which is where I'm not expecting to write those pages with the intention of showing it to someone else. I think that whole censorship barrier has also gone. So my internal censors, they have not acted in that in those pages. So therefore, some of that writing is very pure, and I feel that once those barriers are gone, I can I can write my real stuff. And I did not realize how strong those barriers were. I did not realize how strong that self censorship was, and that liberation has definitely helped me to kind of get that habit from morning pages into my actual creative life and start writing things as if I'm writing the morning pages with no care for what people will think and whether this writing will even appeal to people. I was constantly writing with keeping, because of my PR background, because of my media background, that was counterintuitive actually. So I was actually writing, playing to the galleries, as they say, and I have been able to at least identify how strong that voice of censorship is. So now I can remove that voice, and I would probably start writing as if no one is reading it, right? And one great example is that blog post that I mentioned some time back, that when I was writing that, I published it, and I immediately went after a few hours to check how many people had read my writing. And that's when I realized that, how strongly inculcated this whole need to be validated through the number of views, the number of likes, the number of shares of your article, that you feel sad, and then you are tempted to rewrite that in a way that how people would want to read it, or how I think people should how I think people would want to read it. And that typically then moves that article away from my unique style of writing to a writing that is more socially accepted, to a writing which where I feel how people would want to see it. And that's where I took a pause and I said, hang on, there are two problems. One is, it doesn't matter whether my article is read by 100 people or 1000 people or one person. Even if my article makes an impact on one person, that's good enough. That's like changing at least one person's way of thinking. The second thought also, which is equally important, is if my article gets one like or two likes, which means in terms of conversion, if you consider a conversion rate of 2%, then two people liking my article means 100 people have read it. And most people will not bother to go and hit the like button or leave a comment or share it. So if my article has been read by 100 people, that's huge, right? Because just think, in an offline world, how many times do you get a chance to take your thoughts to 100 people and make 100 people read what you have written? Not very often, right? In the pre-internet area, to reach 100 people would take so much of effort. Now it is so easy to do that, and that is the best part of living in the internet area. So even if I get one or two likes on my article, that's like reaching 100 people. And I think that is the fantastic revelation that's come to me. So I would be capitalizing on both the revelations going forward. One, the fact that I'm writing for myself, I'm not playing to the galleries anymore. I will put it out as it occurs to me and as I find it relevant. And I expect that that will actually attract the right kind of people to read my articles. And if the right kind of people are reading my articles, then I'm building the right kind of audience. And that is extremely important part of the writing process, or any creative work for that matter, that you automatically filter out people or the audience that you really don't want, and you attract the audience that you want purely because you are being yourself. You write it in a certain way, and that appeals to a certain audience. And I don't want 100,000 people who don't directly relate to me, but they are reading my article only because I have written it in a certain way, uh, only because I'm playing to the gallery. So I don't want that to happen. So from that perspective, I want to be completely authentic in my writing, and I think that is the difference, or rather that is the deviation from my training as a journalist, where you typically write for the eyeballs. Here I'm not going to be doing that. My focus is going to be to write the way I write and to express the thoughts the way I feel. And I'm sure there are at least 10 people or at least 100 people out there in the universe who feel the same way, think the same way, want to hear this, want to have that guidance. And I would want that to typically happen through my writing process. So authenticity may actually bring the right people to the galleries, and getting the right people to the galleries will get the right kind of reaction to my writing. And all this has been possible because of the clarity that I'm getting through the Artist Way book, and also through the Big Magic. The confidence that you need is also coming from that book as well. So grateful for both the books, and this has been my journey. I think I'm getting into that confidence zone now, where the flight should be able to take off from here. Let's see what lies next. I'm super excited. Before I sign off, one more thing I want to share is that last couple of weeks I tried to read the next week's chapter before I had completed the current week, and that created a bit of confusion in my mind while I was doing the exercises, while I was reading stuff. So going forward, I decided that I will not read the subsequent weeks. I want the process to be as natural and organic as possible. So that's how I'm going to keep it so far. With that last step, I'm signing off. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, do share it with your friends who will benefit from it. I will meet you again next week.